All right, factoring by grouping. Anytime you've got four terms, you want to cross your fingers and hope that you can factor by grouping, and that doesn't always work, but usually if you're required to, then the textbook is going to, it will work. So factoring by grouping, here we go. Anytime you have four terms, you're going to group or bunch them together two by two. So the first two terms and then the second two terms, okay? And basically what you're doing is greatest common factoring twice. So the greatest common factor of these first two are 2, because 2 goes into 6 and 2 goes into 4, and they also have a factor of x in common. Now, take a look at what is left over when we factor out that greatest common factor. I'm going to put it in green to emphasize this. We're going to have a 3 and one more x left when we do this division by 2x, and here we're going to have a positive 2y left over. Your goal in factoring by grouping, if factoring by grouping is going to work, you must have exactly the same binomial over here with these second two terms. So when we look at this, not only do we notice that they both have a 5 in common, in this case they both have a negative. So let's factor out a negative 5. Okay, so remember that you're dividing when you do factoring out a greatest common factor. So when I divide this by negative 5, I actually get a positive 3x. Ooh, very good sign. We're getting the same. Divide by negative 5, aha, positive 2y. Now, here's something that a lot of people may not realize is going on. You actually have two terms now. Terms are stuck together by multiplication and they're separated by subtraction and addition. Here's the separation between the two terms at this row. Okay? Because it's stuck together with multiplication, we've got a 2x times this lump and a negative 5 times that lump, which happen to be the same lumps. And this factor right here, factors are things that are multiplied together, and this factor are exactly the same. They're both binomial factors that are identical, 3x plus 2y. So just like when we factored out the x out of these two terms, we're going to factor out or divide by a whole big binomial, 3x plus 2y, on both of these. And so when we do that, the 3x plus 2y comes out in front if you want, and you have left over the 2x minus 5, okay? And that is what's left after you've factored out the greatest common factor, which was a binomial factor in this case. Okay, so let's look over here at this second example. Give it a try. You might want to pause here and see if you can do it. And then I'm going to work it out. First two, second two. This one is really tricky because of the greatest common factors being ones and negative ones. So here in these first two terms, they're separated. Remember, terms are separated by pluses and minuses. So we actually have four terms, but the first two have a factor of x in common and a factor of 1. Okay, every two numbers always has a factor of 1. So we actually have a 1x out in front, and our binomial that's left is 3x minus 4y. Okay, so that factor is a binomial factor, two terms. All right, let's look at the last two of the original. The last two terms, well, it doesn't look like they have anything in common. Well, but remember, everything has a 1 in common, so I'm going to put a 1 there. Okay, we can always divide by 1. But remember what our goal is. Our goal is to match this binomial with this one, just like we did here. This binomial matches with this one. That's your goal. So how in the world are you going to divide by 1 but come up with a positive 3x instead of a negative 3x? And over here, look at this. We've got a positive 4y and negative 4y. Oh, I know. What if we take and make this a negative 1? If we divide by negative 1, Then we're going to have a positive 3x and a negative 4y. So there we go. So 3x positive and negative 4y. When we divide up here, we factor out a negative 1. And so then the last step, this is critical that you really kind of get what's going on. We have two terms now. We have this term, which has a single factor and a binomial factor, and then we have this term, which has a constant number factor and a binomial factor. And both of these have the binomial factor in common of 3x minus 4y, so we're going to put that out front. 3x minus 4y, and we have the x minus 1 left over, and so those go in its own set of parentheses. Ta-da! That's factoring by grouping.